So this interview is brought to you by Burn Up Coaching and the 21-Day Challenge. If you are an entrepreneur, high achiever, influencer, you're feeling stuck, you're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, tired, you just don't have that fire like you used to have, or maybe you want to burn it new. It's brand new. You're trying to cultivate this fire for the first time. Whatever the case might be, the 21-Day Challenge will help you get crystal clear on your purpose, dial that into a 21-day goal, and break that down into daily action steps so you can take action on it every day. You'll have accountability. You'll dial in your morning and nighttime routines. You'll have weekly deep dive calls to uncover the limiting beliefs, the self-sabotage, all that nonsense. Kick out the BS and step into your GPS, your greatest possible self. If you are ready to step into that best possible self, send me a message, chris@beyourgps.com, or find me on Facebook and let me know you're ready for your 21-day challenge or you want to know more, and I can give you more info. Next is the iTunes Review of the Week. And we love getting these iTunes Review of the Weeks because we get to hear how we're doing, what you really think of the show, and how we can improve. So Melissa C. says, enthusiasm and energy. This guy has enough energy to spare, and it helps me feel spunky and enthusiastic again. Yay! Melissa, thanks so much for giving us that iTunes review. And if you want to give us a review and you're listening, you're watching right now, you love the show, and or you want to give us constructive criticism, we're always open for growth and that feedback. Go ahead and go to iTunes and search for Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self, or alternatively, you can type in beyourgps.com/iTunes and find the same place. And you can find us on Facebook and give us a review there by searching Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Good or good? Very good. Now, this next human being, my goodness gracious, I am stoked. It just hit me, the fact that I'm about to interview Tim Long. It's going to be amazing, phenomenal. Before he comes on, though, I just want to let you know that this guy is such a passionate, soul-driven human being who draws the absolute best out of everyone around him. He's so self-expressed. He's such a passionate leader. So, he serves people at the deepest levels and just is totally generous with who he is, his soul, his spirit, and as a human being. And you are definitely going to want to stay tuned for this entire interview because he shares the wisdom, he shares the gold, he's a product of the product, so to speak. He lives what he teaches, and he is just an amazing human being. So I really want you to stay tuned because I love the guy. I've known him for years, and he's really helped me out personally on my journey to step into my greatest possible self, and I really wouldn't be here without him. So I'll be able to look at his face in a second and see what kind of faces he's making about me in a second. But let's read his intro because he's an incredible human being. Definitely stay through all the way till the end because there could be one idea in here that completely changes the rest of your life. So stay tuned. Tim is what you would call a unique kind of person. He grew up in a third world country, Thailand, for 15 years and then spent the next 17 years in the United States. Having worked in education, performing arts, film and acting, business, retail, home improvement, and construction fields, to name a few, Tim saw an incredible opportunity to use his experiences with all these types of people to create something that people could actually use to work through their life. He has come from the East and the West, and he put the two together to create his straightforward style of coaching. He specializes in three main areas of life: relationships, communication, and technology. And we're absolutely blessed to have him here with us today. Tim, you ready to rock this, bro?
Heck yeah, man.
Yes! You are now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, man, and just who you are in the world. It is incredible. It is a phenomenon, and I really acknowledge you for the leader that you have developed yourself to be, and I'm super grateful to have you here, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, man. Awesome. So let's dive right into the question of the day, and it's based on our theme, which is a purpose worth dying for or living for, whichever you want to look at it, whichever way you want to look at it, but something that you're willing to give everything for, okay? And I want to know, Tim, how has this concept showed up in your life?
Oh, something you're willing to die and or live for. That's a good, I think those two are incredible distinctions. Let me look. So I'm going to back up to when I wanted to commit suicide. So if you go to my website, it actually shares, there was a quick brief moment in my life where I lost everything. I went through job loss, my home. I was, didn't have enough money to pay for the home anymore. And my wife wanted to walk out and leave. And I had my son. And I remember, it was about 7 years ago now. I remember when it really hit me the hardest, or when I look back and I realized, oh my gosh, this was huge, is my son walked in the room at one point in my darkest days, and I felt nothing towards him.
Wow.
And it was like so dark and so like I couldn't believe that not even my son could bring me out of whatever this was. Wow. And I remember, later that day, I had the cops called, I had to get hurled out of there on the gurney. I'm driving in the ambulance and I'm sitting there, and the med tech looks at me and says, he's like, Tim, you look like you're fine. And I'm like, yeah, I feel kind of fine. And I'm looking out the window and I'm looking at everybody driving by, and every single one of them had this just like face. They all, you could tell, none of them had anything, you catch me in a car, you'll see me singing or, dancing, you'll see life happening if you look in my car. Right. And I looked at all these cars and I saw no life. And I realized I literally started laughing right there in the ambulance. And so you talk about this dying and living for purpose, coming back to your question. I was like, man, if I could make a difference with one person, it would make it all seem worth it to me. And I remember kind of sailing out from there. The psychiatrist cleared me. I was only in the night, there for a night. Fast forward several years, my very first client walked into an LA Fitness. I was just there as a little sales guy, and she was a double PhD and had done all this work. And, she paid me $50 an hour every time, we sat down. She was my very first client, but I had her for 2 years. But that was, that was the start of it. But that was what, hey, I didn't want people to have to go through what I went through. And I was like, every conversation I have, you've met me, Chris, and been around me. It's like I turn everything into a relationship conversation. I'm sure some people get sick of it. But that's what I got for me about what I live for, what I'm willing to live for, and what I almost died for. So it's a little different than what you asked, but it's what I do now is, hey, when you're around me, I sniff out BS in relationships, and I acknowledge greatness in relationships when I see it. It's like, it's kind of part of my ethos now. Wow. So there you go. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Powerful. Great share. Great share. I love how you started off with a story. I think that's the best
and I know
way.
That was deep, but hey, there you go.
No, it's great. It's great. I really love it because I think the way to answer a question that will stick in people's minds and have like an interview or a presentation or whatever, to have it stick is by telling stories, because those stories and those metaphors are what really reach the subconscious mind. So I love when people do that, and I really, really love your journey and how you were at that rock bottom, and you didn't really didn't feel like you had a purpose to live for, and now you're like, man, I see who I get to be and how I get to ignite people and help them in their relationships, and that is something to live for. It's everything to live for, including your family and stuff like that. I mean, that's always bundled up in there as well. So yeah, man, super awesome. So tell us a little bit more about Tim Long Consulting and what you do today.
Awesome. So, fast forward January 2014, I started my coaching practice at the time. It was just relationships, and I had branded myself originally as the Love Guru. I had a client who had called me that, and so it was theloveguru.com, and I got a lot of work done from it. I had created this daily meme following where I had at first just started doing text. And it was individual, I didn't have any of this, MailChimp newsletter stuff. It was individual text to everybody every morning. And, originally the list was 10. And I think by the end of the 2 years, the list had grown to 200 people that I was individually sending memes to every single day, which was kind of cool. And after a while, I was like, crap, man, I can't believe I did all that. And I was doing construction at this time. I was going through breakups. So, you'll see like in certain aspects of my memes, you'll definitely, if I could put a story together with like, hey, this is what was happening when I wrote this one. And this is what was going on. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah. But so I did the relationship thing. And then there was a moment where I realized that I didn't want to try to be anything other than me. I just wanted to be me. Right. And I realized that what I kept getting asked was a lot of self-mastery conversations, because people saw my life and were like, wow, you seem really masterful with how I live. That's where the East comes in. I brought that discipline of just living that you don't find as much here in the West. You have a lot of commerce-driven ideas, but the East is still littered with respect your elders, Manage your time. Simplicity is key, like those kinds of things. So I mesh the two, right? I love business, but I also love simple living. So it's never one or the other. It's a little mesh of both.
I love it.
And I realized I wanted to, and I was getting consulted. It wasn't just coaching anymore. People were coming to me with questions and ideas, and I wouldn't have these long coaching engagements. It was one-off consulting ideas or questions. And so that's when I decided to start Tinmon Consulting and officially launched it last year. So this is my first year fully as like a full-fledged, this is my only thing I'm doing, because I had started it when I was working for a tech company last year. So it was a little bit of both, whereas this year is strictly this.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, I want to do relationships, but I also want to use the skills that I have.
Right.
I don't want to limit it to just that. So I do relationships, but I also help people specifically in business navigate tricky communications. I love problem customers. I would always when I was in retail, I got up to management and all the tough customers always came to me. Like I was actually known for the guy to get that sense to, because I love dealing with sticky situations. It's actually something that excites me. And I love figuring out what people are saying. So communication in business, whether the group is one-on-one or whether it's a large group, you have 2 groups of 10 and they're trying to negotiate, I help with that kind of communication.
Wow.
And then the third is technology. I've loved tech ever since I was a kid. You know, I loved my dad's first laptop when he told me it was $3,000 and the screen was this big and you played chess on it and solitaire. You know, I mean, to now I have these, wonderful tech stuff behind me. I have screens around me. I have, my AirPods and, I love technology and how it assists us in connecting, but also the barriers that it poses to connection too. I think it's important to talk about both. You can't just say, oh, technology is great for connecting people. Yeah, but not so much really. So it does kind of depend. So that's a little bit of what I'm doing now and kind of how I got there.
Beautiful. And one of the big things that we wanted to cover today is connecting people to their humanity. And I just want to check in, like, what does humanity mean to you, and like what do we strive for? What is, like, if we had all a collective definition of humanity, like, what does that mean, and how do we strive towards being more of that and living in that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great question. I think for me, the way I define humanity is anything that is intrinsically and specifically human nature related. And, people could say one way or the other that it may not be human, but, like whenever we have any kind of sect or grouping, we'll call it an entity of this, humanity, Christianity. There's all these different kinds of itties that we use. And humanity to me is anything that is expressed as a human, that is specifically human. And in this case, it could be language and human connection. And for me, I think I specifically was like, I'm using technology to capture people's humanity. And what does that mean? Capturing humanity, candid, easy way to say that is candid, photography. Is, are you catching people in the moment of them doing something human? Whether it's playing a sport, whether it's an instrument, whether it's dancing, whether it's taking a test, but we're doing something that's ultimately human. And I'm capturing that moment without them knowing. Or they do know, but they're still in the moment that expresses the trueness of that human expression.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah. So, like, really, we're focusing today on capturing that moment of humanness, whatever that is. And there's so many different facets of being human. It could be a conversation. It could be, being in self-thought and meditation. It could be mowing the grass and, like, being someone at work, whatever that is, right? It's like being human. There's so many dimensions.
When my son was born, we had a friend of ours, she was a photographer, and she approached us, and she totally was there documenting his birth. I still have his birth photos. Like, you talk about humanity, like that's the essence of being human, is birthing another human. I have all that on photo, and I can't say that I go back and look at it, mostly because I'm divorced and I don't necessarily need to see that part of but like, I have the moment of my son's birth. And I think that's pretty special. But I think I'm learning more and more, because I've hated photography for so long.
How did you hate photography, man? You have these drones, you're capturing people's
I know.
essence. Come on.
So I grew up in Thailand, right? We said that, but we grew up as missionaries. And so every so often, my dad needed to take a family picture to send back to all the churches that were supporting us. And without fail, that experience always seemed to go horribly. We'd get set up, we'd get dressed, and like the camera wouldn't work, and dad would be like, you got to stand this way. And it just, for me, my memory of it was always negative. And so even growing up, people want to take pictures. I'm like, you got one picture, maybe two, and I'm out. Like my fuse was so small. It still is. Like, I don't like to sit there and have people linger forever to take shots. I'm not about that. But I'm discovering more and more my love and the beauty of what photography, videography, and what someone with the right kind of mindset can really capture. And that's really the piece. Like, you can be up high, but I captured this. I went to Florida recently with my wife, and we went to this gentleman's 80-year-old birthday party, 80th birthday party. And I kind of randomly got put into the role of capturing the weekend. And I put together this 2.5-minute video that included drone footage and GoPro footage. And you should have seen everybody at this party. Not to mention the guy who it was for and his wife were ecstatic, but there was like 80 people there, and every single person wanted the video. Half the people cried when they saw it. And all I did was spend a few hours putting together and editing a handful of pieces of footage. But it made a profound difference for everybody at that party because of who this person was, and that the normal people who managed the media didn't have to worry about it. And you could see the look on their face. You as a coach know, if you don't have to put on that hat, you appreciate the person who took it off your head.
Totally.
And you know what I mean? And there are these two guys, there's Steve and Chris, and I totally took it off their head, and they were able to just be in the moment. And I captured them being in the moment, and you could see the look on their faces. And so I think for me, that's been what I'm like jonesing for, is I want more things where I'm like, hey, people are crying because of what they saw me get. Because it wasn't what everyone else got, because I'm looking for the moments that are truly human, the moments that have the most emotion, the moment that when you look at it again, you can be like, oh man, that makes me feel all kinds of things.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm curious, in terms of us recognizing and accessing these moments and fully receiving what's possible in a moment. If they have someone like you there to capture it, all the better, right? And 10 times, 100 times better. And like, what is it that's in that moment that is so special? And how can we cultivate that as human beings, either on our own or with other human beings, so that we experience that magic and start to create more of that in our own lives?
Absolutely. I think it's a twofold question, or a twofold answer to your question. Is that, one, you have to get really good at identifying at what's really important to either the person that you're in front of, or the group at large. In that particular instance, what was really important for that group is that just the camaraderie of everybody was captured. And that the main gentleman's named Skip, is that the main guy, the majority of the footage that he was included, that he got to see it, and that everybody that you could see that everyone was included. That was like the most important thing to everybody. It didn't matter whether or not someone was doing something crazy, or if every single person got on it. It was, did the group get included, and did we capture the memory of this man? Now, anybody can go into that situation and make it about them or make it about anybody else. But if you want to start practicing what I practice, my first, and I think you mentioned in the beginning, Chris, I really love serving people. Like, it almost kills me if I can serve someone. It makes me just so happy. Especially if I know if it's for someone who's really going to appreciate it. You got to get interested in what this person A over here, how they would actually want it. Because it might be very, very different than how I think they want it. So I think that's step one, is identifying what's really there. People will say something, but then if you really, really looked, if you took a step or two back, you'll be great with it. And then the second piece is to, I had it earlier, but it's along the lines of practicing that everywhere you go. Ask yourself the question, every time you go is like, what's really, maybe that's all you do is you practice that question. So I'm here with you and Chris, and you're at Burn It Up Coaching, and I'm asking myself, okay, what's the real deal here for you? You step into this curiosity phase, and curiosity is very close to being like a child. But in this case, we're being curious as an adult, where we have all of our life experience and our history, but we have that, all right, I'm gonna start asking some questions, right? And you get curious about people, and you'll find that humanity opens up so fast when curiosity gets injected.
Wow.
Like that. Because there's like this freedom to be, because it doesn't matter, because you're just curious. You're not sitting there being like, well, I'm cool here, but not over here. You're not doing that. You're like, oh, I'm cool with it all. What do you want to show me?
Right.
And then they're like, well, I'll show you the real thing. And that is whatever is there in the moment for them.
Yeah.
That's love, or maybe that's laughter, or, maybe that's sadness. Man, people shy away from sadness and anger, but those are just as much human moments as happiness and joy are. And I think it's important that we capture those too. Like sometimes I've captured, car accidents and the chaos that surrounds them.
Wow.
And what you see humans doing. And it's all in effort to study people. Yeah. It's all an effort to understand humanity to a greater degree.
Yeah.
And that's what I would give someone else. I say, hey, if you really are in this world as a coach, a consultant, a therapist, a counselor, a psychiatrist, whatever this human thing is where we're studying human behavior,
right,
that's how I study others, is I try to study them as much as I can in the midst of a moment.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the second piece, is like getting good at identifying moments. Getting good at identifying spaces for moments. Because there may be times where it's appropriate, and there may be times where it's not.
Right.
And that's where that discernment comes in. Right? It's really about, if some of your listeners are landmark graduates, they call it dancing in the conversation. That's where dancing comes into play, because it's not, you're flowing with it.
Yeah.
You know what your intention's about, but you're not trying to make anything happen. You're just present to the music. And then all of a sudden, the music, you get this great interlude, or all of a sudden a percussion break happens, and you can feel the energy shift instantly.
Yeah.
And that's when because you step back, you're not in it with everybody else. You're stepping back to see. And then all of a sudden you're like, boom, you capitalize on that. And then all of a sudden people wonder why you're such a wizard.
Well, Tim, wouldn't you say for anyone who's even a leader, like anyone who considers themselves a leader needs to develop this? Not just coaches, not just consultants or psychiatrists, but like, hey, I'm going to be around people for the rest of my life, so it's probably important for me to start studying how they show up. And how
I would say so. I think it's entirely valuable. I mean, if you really want to be a leader, there are some leaders who are not interested in that. But I think the new brand of leadership that you're talking about, we'll say in that way, absolutely vital to the success of a leader nowadays. To the way that human beings are evolving, the way we're growing up, the way we're waking up.
Yeah.
We're not just going to follow someone who says something. We're looking for respect. I say that from my own experience. I want to work for someone I respect. And if I don't respect you in the way that you live, in the way that you listen, in the way that you ask questions, I'm out the door, bro.
Right. And align. I hear respect and alignment. Like you align with the person, their values, their energy, how they see the world. Like those are the people who we want to work with. And like today, in today's day and age, like we vote with our dollars. Like if we believe in companies that represent those values, like we vote with our time and our energy. If we dedicate our physical labor or our gifts, our abilities, whatever it might be, to causes, to charities, to organizations, it's like we have to align with that. We have to respect those things.
Heck yes.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. And if we understood connection greater, like if you think about what's happening in the country nowadays, we're just all truncated. We're all over the place because I think we're all so split up value-wise. But if we all got connected with something, and we have to have something bigger, it used to be that it was religion, or, we had another country attacking us. And you've seen a lot of those things fail as the populace wakes up.
Right.
And you start to recognize that you need a heightened level of value system.
Yeah.
You need a value system that's far more inclusive than what we have currently. A value system that is much less rule-based and much more principle-based, that can be assimilated across many groups and many belief systems. That's the thing, is you have now, we're such a melting pot, especially here in the United States, but we're a huge melting pot of different beliefs, ethnicities, cultures, everything. We can't use the same value system we used. And we can't use that. And that's where the human connection piece comes in, is if we could all recognize the humanity in each other, then perhaps we could come together on values that actually work for everybody.
Wow. Yeah, and it's like, I hear awareness is super important too. Like, to be aware of, what do I believe first off, like what's important to me, and then say, okay, who are the people, the role models, the leaders, the companies, the organizations, the causes that I believe in, the values that they champion, and then how can I align more with that? And I hear that also it's important to be inclusive of, hey, if someone else doesn't necessarily align with what I believe in, I'm not going to spend my time and my energy telling them why they should, believe what I believe, or that they're wrong, so to speak. It's like, I'm going to say, great, if you want to learn more about what I do, like, I'll share it with you, and I'm always curious about what you're doing and why you're doing it, so I'll seek to understand rather than judging and, excluding from my consciousness and awareness.
That's right. And we would be able to do that because we would understand that there is this ground level basis that we all agree we will abide by.
Yeah.
And if that's in place, it's just like the nature of a healthy relationship. You see people in a healthy relationship, there's certain things they put in place that the other person can count on.
Yeah.
Or the team can count on. I loved playing football when I was in high school. I only played 2 years. It was never very good. But I learned so much, especially my second year when I was a senior.
Yeah.
Because I saw our first team defense gel. And it was made up, I think, 8 seniors and 3 juniors. So, this was a very senior team. And one of the things they did was at the end of every practice, the first teamers, they all committed to sit in a circle on their bellies on the field and debrief the practice every single time.
Wow. And
I will tell you what that produced was we had 10 regular games. And I'll just tell you result-wise. And this is it all comes back to connection, just so you understand. Minus the very first game and the very last game, so 8 games, we allowed no more than a single touchdown or no touchdowns for 8 games straight.
Wow.
That's how ruthless the defense was.
Dang.
And it was because we were all committed to a particular goal. And half the guys on defense kind of didn't like each other. But that didn't matter because the value was greater than their dislike.
Totally.
And I think what we have now is a lot of dislike and a lot of animosity and a lot of differing opinions without a unified goal, without
humanity's prospering and love and evolution and awakening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So there you go. I know I've kind of said the same thing, just in some different ways.
That's great. I love it. I love the perspective, and I love the example. I love how, in football, that's such a bonding experience where people clearly have the same goal, which is the team winning, and especially in this case, nobody gets points. Nobody comes across our field goal range or across our end zone, whatever it might be. Like, we're going to stop everything that even comes close, and there was such a strong desire for that even though the individual persons may have differed in their values, like overall, there was still those powerful alignments of, hey, we're committed to this team. We're committed that no points get scored, as often as possible, so powerfully that it created that tremendous result for you guys.
They called themselves the dark side.
Wow.
That was like, goose egg every time. Yes. But I think, and it could be football, some of you, may not agree with football, but it could be in any kind of team, any kind of partnership where people come together because of something.
But people don't realize we're on a team in being human. Like, they call it Team Human.
Exactly. And if we can have one person come over and see that humanity is worth the goal,
Mm.
then that's worth it. It's worth our time.
Yeah.
I intend to do quite more than one person, but if even one, that's where it becomes worth it to me.
What would you say is the prize on the other side of coming together and being one team for humanity?
That look in someone's eye. Personally, I don't need a lot. I'm a simple man, Chris. And honestly, one of the things I ran into a friend who I haven't seen in a while, just the other day, and we had a bit of a falling out. And he was a very, very close friend to me. And we got together, and it was funny. I meant to spend 20 minutes with him and his wife, and I think we spent 4.5 hours.
Wow.
We sat down, and there was just this look of understanding, this look of what we're about. And we instantly, I think we came up with like 2 pages of notes about different ideas it was just sparks were flying because the awareness of both the individuals was on the same team. Yeah. And so you say, what's the prize? Is more and more people that get to look me in the eye, and we get to sit and have sparks fly, because that's the nature of the world we're in. Versus now you sit down and everyone wants to talk about the weather and how uncomfortable they are about their girlfriend's this or their school's that. And it's like, I get that those are things that are a part of life,
right?
But that does not have to be what we talk about. Even with strangers. Like, why can't we sit down with strangers and be like, dude, I was having this idea the other day. And I think it's because we're so afraid of everyone else. Because we have no idea what connection's happening, because we haven't taken a step back, because we're in it and all. This is bringing everything full circle. That we don't have that freedom to just sit there and be like, oh my gosh, I have this and this. And I love what you created. Like, that's a world that's actually worth fighting, dying, living for.
Yeah.
A world that's free, a world that's aware, a world that's full of love and compassion, but also firmness and steadfastness. All those things to me are worth my time and energy.
Yeah. Powerful, man. Powerful. So
there you go.
In terms of like being connected, what would you say it takes to be connected, especially if we're in our own stuff, if we're dealing with our own conversation that is self-sabotaging, that's limiting, that's unconscious? What would you say are some biggest things that we can do to become more awoke or awakened or loving and present?
It may be slightly different for men and women, but I'll blanket it and say solitude is a big one. But then at the same time, some people may collapse solitude with loneliness. And therefore, those people may need some really strong community. Some people who will hear what they have to say, but not get sucked into their crap. We all have it. Because I know about 6 to 8 months ago, I loved this is my first home that I've had ever by myself with my wife, and that I contributed at least equally, if not more, to providing. And I got so happy being here 100% without anyone else. And I started doubting myself in work.
Wow.
And what I recognized that what I needed was not solitude, but in that moment was to connect with people I trusted and people who I knew thought I was incredible, because I was not feeling incredible. I was not experiencing myself as this rock star. I was like, and I called some of my trusted friends, and within a matter of days, that had shifted for me in terms of connection. But I think if you're feeling disconnected, the first step is to evaluate, if you can, where the disconnect happened for you. Because at a point we can tell when we're feeling connected and when we don't. If we really check in, and this is all, if anything we can do, step back, pause and look and ask yourself the question. I actually am developing a method for establishing relationships, but you can do this with yourself. Is the first step is connection, is evaluate the level of connection, or in this case, the level of disconnection. Like, to what degree are you disconnected? Because this is how I evaluate, or at least initially how I evaluate whether or not someone should work with me, because I'm not a licensed therapist. And in some cases, as coaches, we do come across people who do need more professional and or medical help.
Right.
And if someone's coming to me saying, I feel completely disconnected in every single area, you can start hearing things that say, hey, maybe I'm not the right person for you.
Right.
So if you're here listening as a professional, it's one of the tools I use. If you're hearing for this just personally, it's you're really looking like, hey, I feel connected here and here, but in this area I feel disconnected. And then you kind of trace yourself back. So those are the first 3 steps that I would use to identify the loss of connection, identify if you can where and when it happened,
Right.
and start to look at whether or not and how widespread the disconnect is.
Wow. Yeah, and it's
go
cool
from there.
because we can look back to the moment that it happened, and oftentimes people will use like the victim or the excuse story that I don't remember. It's too long ago, or I don't remember. It's like BS. Your subconscious mind can like lock onto that in a second.
You're lazy. You're lazy. That's all. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, wow, you just love being lazy, don't you? No one likes being called lazy, so they do the work.
It's true. Why is that? Because they get their value out of producing enough, being enough.
I think we've created a society that glorifies regret over the risk of living our lives. Because you think about it, we all are going to have pain at some point. I think we're afraid of the pain that it takes to ask that question, right? Oh, why did you do that? Well, crap, I got to go dig that up, you know? But I think a lot of us are actually fine living with regret. At least now. At least we think we're fine. I shouldn't say that we are. I think we think we're fine. Because one of the things that I've done more and more, but I've talked to a lot of older people. And by older, I mean 80, 90, a handful of people that were right at there at 100. And without fail, every single one of them has always said, I wish I would have spent more time with people who mattered and less time with people who didn't. And I know it sounds weird, but like everywhere I go, all the leaders that I listen to that I respect, everyone says this. They say OQP, only quality people, only surrounded, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with most.
Yep.
All of this is pointing to you surround yourself with people who are in your like mind. And I think far too many of us surround ourselves with people who aren't in our best interest.
Right. By default. By default, it's like what already is. It's like, oh, well, they're already in my social circle.
Obligation, respect, whatever excuse we use to justify that. And we wonder why our lives are filled with regret, because we're allowing all these regretful people to have it happen that way. Yeah. So that's part of it. It's just identifying that connection and looking for, hey, where are the connections that I actually want to have now? Once you get connected to yourself, then you can start connecting with others. And then you move into the second phase, which is collaboration. You're asking, okay, so say you and I, we've established a connection and we know it's at, F level or whatever. Then we're like, okay, now how do we collaborate? And where do we collaborate? Do we collaborate in technology? Do we collaborate in construction? Where we find the areas of collaboration? Right. And then the third and final phase is refinement. So once we develop the area that we want to collaborate in, then we're like, okay, how do we up our game in that area? We're now in that phase of refining an already good thing, right? You're a coach. So you wouldn't go try to be a new coach. You would refine your current coaching skills. Right. You carve it down now that you find your piece of stone, which is you coach whatever, bring up coaching. Right. And that's something you and I did. We refined that process in our conversation, right? Yeah. So that's what a trusted connection, collaborative, refined relationship could look like. And those are the steps to kind of getting there. And each phase is a little bit different for each person. There's no time limit. Sometimes some people take several years inside of one of the phases. You may take years to figure out where you collaborate with somebody. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm refining these things like mad. Yeah. Right now I'm refining my photography and my pilot skills. I'm looking to get my pilot's license, and I'm in the refining stages of the first level. Then I get to the next level. Now I'm in like a whole new, I have to start all from, scratch again. So you can just kind of use this as you go. It's just a blueprint. It's not a end all be all.
Right. Yeah, it's like a framework, and I think that's the most valuable things thing in life is like we can use any set of tools for any job. It's all about, hey, what's going to be the most valuable thing? You know, you and I both had
Absolutely.
Landmark and gone through a ton of that. So it's like we get to use that in our life. That's one set of tools, and it's not the
Absolutely.
end all be all. And if we say that that's like everything, then that is, you know, being ignorant and closed-minded and not open to, you know, being smart and efficient and using our time and our energy to our best and highest use. So I think it's really cool that we get all these different frameworks, and that's why I love doing the show, is because we get to find out, hey, what's the best solution for people with, you know, relationship challenges and they're feeling disconnected in technology in our modern world. Well, okay, well, let's talk to Tim and see what he has to share to be able to get you reconnected to your purpose, to something worth living for, to something that really matters to you.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Those are my favorite things, and I love talking to people about self-mastery. That was something that came up, like my latest hashtags that I use on Instagram is master yourself and mastering yourself. Because it's like, you know, you even said in the very beginning, you're like, hey, it really comes down to, do I know myself and do I know what I want?
Yeah.
And I find so many people have no clue how to really answer that question. Yeah. And that's what I've been finding recently. That's what I've found the requests are being more geared around is, help me discover who I am for myself. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a fun gig.
What is Tim Long's self-mastered self?
What is a dangerous and good man? What does that mean? Not dangerous in a way that you have to fear.
Right.
But dangerous in a way that you have to take seriously.
It's like effective, powerful.
Effective, someone who walks in the room, and you know I mean business.
Yeah.
And then good. You just know that around me, you can trust me because what I say is what I do. And if I can't do something, I tell you. And otherwise, we're just going to have a great time.
Yeah.
That's really the self-mastered and constantly evolving. But it's that coupled with my mission statement, which is currently I am dedicated to bringing forth the awareness of the planet and spreading peace and love throughout the world. I have recently, I keep saying recently, but I have yes, freedom. I'm like, I was going to say it again. Like, freedom has become a really big piece for me too, especially in this mastering yourself, how important freedom is. And just for me, like how much I feel like I hear anything that sounds like a suppression of freedom, and I get like, it's almost knee jerk. I have to be careful and like catch myself because I'll just straight up react. Yeah. But it's so visceral, Chris. Yeah. It's like fire sometimes when I hear things that are not about freedom. And so I'm like, oh man, I'm going to reincorporate that into my mission statement and reword it so that it includes it, because it's so strong for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a background, like something for me, I really value freedom, and then I also value self-expression. You know, I think those two are really linked powerfully. And for you, you had the background in the performing arts and stuff. So that was self-expression, such a high form of self-expression and freedom that you can be whoever you want to be at any moment. And that's probably another reason why you got into coaching and becoming more conscious and aware, is like, I want to be who I want to be. And I want to trust myself and my soul and my journey and my path so that I get to be who I want to be and be free in that pursuit.
Absolutely. It's actually, and that's a very good way of putting it. It's exactly right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. It's a good recap.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So in terms of technology and making sure that we don't get too caught up on Facebook and on social media, you know, you worked a lot in the tech space. So like, what do we need to be aware of and make sure that we keep into our life, keep in our life to stay connected with human beings, connected with ourselves?
I think I think it's a little harder to answer, but I think, you know, it's an analog response, which is we just need to do less technology stuff. I know for me, one of the things that's been really valuable about having the drones is that while it's technology, it's forced me to get out a lot. I have been out probably every other day for almost 3 months. I'm driving around, discovering new areas of my town, my city, and the adjoining city, and been meeting a ton of people. I walk into Best Buy and straight up conversations. I think if we allow our technology, so we ask the question then, if we look at the connection, so let's use the method, identify the connection, identify the level of it. If the technology is taking us away from people, so say the commitment is, I want to be around more people, I want to establish more connections with people,
right,
in person, right? We look at the current technology that we're using. We say our iPhone, we check out the apps we're using, we say our iPad, we look at all of it and we ask ourselves, are these things bringing me closer or not to people? And you can say, hey, and be really honest, being closer in this particular litmus test is in physical proximity. I'm not talking about deepening your relationship by having a 3-hour phone call, because while that's great, there's a big difference between having a 3-hour phone call and a 3-hour in-person session where you just can't get over the night.
Totally.
And you know that. Those nights are like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't even put down phone calls, because phone calls are great, but we don't even do those anymore.
Right.
You know, we send a quick little text message or an emoji or something. And that suffices as our connection to people. And science has shown that text messages are literally the lowest form of communication in terms of what they convey and how we respond to them. But yet they dominate our communication, and we wonder why we have problems. So that's what I would say is, if you're finding that you have a deficit in your connection, look at the technology you use and ask yourself the question, is this bringing me closer or further away from the people I want to be with most? If it's either one, if it's bringing you closer, great, keep doing it. You're on the right track. Share it with others and keep the connection up. If you feel like it's bringing you further away, well then great. Start incorporating phone calls into your technology. I know it sounds very 20th century, but it's also very important to hear someone's voice. Or, Zoom calls, I think, are very nice.
Yeah.
But they also aren't the same as being in the
same room
with someone. And it's not even the same as a phone call, because phone calls are, to me anyways, phone calls don't have the same kind of lag. I feel like video calls, you're kind of worried and you're distracted about different things.
Right. And
it's just slightly different. But the idea here is to spend more time with people that you love and spend more time around them rather than having to, be around. So I think that's where I would start, is asking those questions about what you're using and whether or not it actually brings you closer together with people.
Yeah. And especially with online, I think a lot of people say, like, my social media network is who I'm connected to. And it's like, well, that's a partial truth. And like, do you actually have, a brotherhood or a sisterhood? Do you actually have, a chamber of commerce or, a group of people,
Rotary
professionals? Right. Like these people who you look up to.
Right. I like people you can actually go to.
Right.
Yeah, I have like over 1,000 people on my friends list on my Facebook. There is like no one who I could really, and that's the reality of all of our social connected networks.
Right.
We're more disconnected now than we've ever been. So I think a lot of it is, it's very, very simple. Is you take this and you put it down and you walk out the door, or you take it with you and you walk out the door and go get a coffee and have a conversation with someone in the line.
Yeah.
And just ask them what they're ordering.
Yeah.
Get interest. Like that's where we come right back to square one, curiosity. If you get curious about what makes human beings human, you'll start to see there's a lot of things, and it's really amazing to watch. I love from The Peaceful Warrior. Did you ever watch the movie?
Yes.
Or read the book?
Yes.
And he's like, there are no ordinary moments, and there's never nothing going on. We think there's nothing going on all the time. But there's always something going on. There's always something to see. If you were to step back, 1 step, 2 steps, 5 steps, 10 steps, what you see is even more. And that's why I love those so much, because of the perspective I'm able to get. I get to fly up to 400 feet and see the world and say, wow, it's
incredible.
I'm this big. Puts things in perspective for me.
Yeah. And I know, like, one of the things you were sharing with me is like there's other people out there who like use drones and capture video and stuff like that, and you're like, man, it's a completely different world when you're studying human beings and you're studying, emotional intelligence, you're studying the moments, you're studying what humanity, right? Like when you have a camera, when you have a tool that can capture a moment, like it's such a different experience than just saying, hey, I'm going to go, get paid to capture a video of an event, to capture,
Right.
to take a video, to take some pictures. It's like, that's not why you do it. It's the why. It's the, the driving force behind what are you seeing through those lenses versus what other people are seeing through the lens. It's a completely different experience that ends up on the other side of, production, so to speak, on the photograph or in the finished video.
That's right. Very much so.
Yeah. Incredible, man. Incredible. So as far as yourself, like I know you're mastering with drones, like you're totally fascinated by that and enthralled by that. Is there any other areas that you really see yourself investing into, like for self-mastery?
I'm looking here. Let me just look here. I'm definitely, so for me, where I'm looking to master is my relationship specifically with men.
Mm-hmm.
And I say master in that I had a kind of interesting relationship with my dad up until this last year, and it's since been mended. And I've noticed that my relationships with men have since changed. And much more fluid, much more, it's almost like it flip-flopped. Like I was really had all these friends who were girls and like almost no guy friends. And now I can like count all these guy friends and like, where'd all my friends go? And maybe because I got married, I don't know. But I'm constantly, I'm really looking at what being a man means, both for myself and for the world. I think that's a big, so that's like my next relationship piece that I'm working on is what I'm calling my rite of passage project for men. And it's the idea that I have that a lot of men have not gone through anything that tells them they're a man, which is why we have so few men actually walking around.
Right.
Because in the old days, if you look, most societies had something that delineated for men whether or not they were one.
Right.
Some were more extreme, some were less extreme, but the outcome was the same. And the outcome was in society and for yourself, you now recognize man. And I don't think we have anything like that in this country anymore.
Nope.
And I think that's why, I mean, you're looking at some statistics that are staggering. That is 42% of kids in the United States are growing up without dads in the home. You have a 53% national divorce rate. You have about a 75% divorce rate in California-ish. Their statistics might be a little old, but most of those are the case. And I look at that and I'm like, wow, how many men are not being present in the upcoming new lives of men?
Yeah.
There's a huge generation of guys who have no idea what it means to stand on your own 2 feet as a man.
Yeah.
And our old way of defining it doesn't work anymore because we've evolved. But there was this disconnect that happened. And so all of a sudden we're trying to evolve, but we didn't. There's like this gap that we're not accounting for.
Right.
And so that's what the rite of passage is hoping to start to solve a little bit.
That's
is
awesome.
Having guys come out of this course and then being like, hey, I don't necessarily know everything I'm going to do with my life, but I know who I am in this moment. So that's what I'm looking to master. What does it mean to be a man? What does it truly mean to have gone through a rite of passage? And how do I help other men do the same thing?
That's incredible, man. I love it. And I think I'm experiencing the same thing. I think that a lot of men are waking up to the fact that they don't feel like a man. It's especially for the people who go into transformational work and stuff, like they get all these distinctions. It's so cool. Like I can transform my life. I can create my reality. But wait, why am I doing this again?
You are.
It's like there's no driving soul behind it because at our core level, like we don't feel like we're a worthy soul,
no
so
idea
to speak.
What our soul is, yeah.
Right.
We have no idea what
Right.
that is.
Right. Exactly.
We think it sounds good, but when we really press, we're like,
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think
I'm not a man anyway, so whatever. Deep down inside, I'm just a little wimp. It's not worth it. I'm gonna go play safe over here. I'm gonna run away from the confrontation.
Whatever the justification is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's incredible, man. But I really acknowledge you for taking that on, because it's definitely needed in the world today. People,
Thank you.
men and women need it. Women are going to be thanking you for, decades and centuries for what you create.
That's what the hope will be. Well, and, who knows?
Right.
It may incorporate them at some time, but right now it's like you said, I love the word brotherhood. I know it always to me invokes just like yeah. The brothers, know what I'm saying?
Well, dude, like one big thing recently is I'm not a dad. You're a dad. And
Sure.
like one thing I discovered is like I made a commitment this year to be my year of nurturing, right? Like I would be nurturing things. That was my focus. That was the energy I wanted to embody throughout the year. And so someone came to me, he's like, dude, like this year was nurturing for you. What's next year going to be? And he's like, what do you think about like father, be like fathering in like the existence, fathering in your dreams, father, like that aspect of being a father. I know for me personally resonated so much because I was like, man, I never thought of myself as capacity father, like I always saw my dad as father, and I'm like, he's so far away, he's so out of reach, he's so like, I don't want to be like him, blah blah blah, whatever conversation I had. But I started mending that relationship with my dad and like saying, I love you, man, I love you, brother. And like all of a sudden, like this awareness came into my field that, man, I like am starting to embody and can embody like being a father and like taking that on for the rest of my life. And like, what does that mean? And how do I show up when I'm being a father, not just for a kid, but a father for a community, a father for a dream? Just what is a father of energy, father energy? Like, what is that?
What does that look? I asked myself a similar question. I love Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing, what's her face? Or even Jon Snow, I'll use him.
Mm-hmm.
And how like there's this love that's instilled with the men who follow him. And I said, what kind of man do I have to be that people would love me like that?
Wow.
And what's interesting is when you said father, that's instantly what showed up. I'm like, well, there's something about that that is fatherly.
Wow.
That is patriarchal in a very warm sense, not in any of this crap that we're hearing nowadays. It's a very like, hey, I'm the father. Come.
Yes.
I like a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
I love it though. That's what it is though. It's like that pride. It's that, man, I created this. You're welcome. You're welcome that I protected these walls. You're welcome that I protected this dream. You're welcome that I did everything it took to sacrifice. We often think about women as the moms that would do anything for their children and stuff. While I agree with that, it's like who actually goes to war and puts their bodies on the line and does whatever it takes.
And that's the thing is it's both. That's what I want to give is I feel like men have been put down for what they do contribute, and not about women. It's men. Hey, you do these things. Yes, you do sacrifice a great deal, and that needs to be valued. And here's why. Yeah. So I am right there with you. Right.
Amazing, Tim, dude. So we're wrapping up now. Final takeaways you want our audience to get from this interview, like to walk away and to walk into their future, to be able to implement right away. What is that?
I would say two things. If you're a leader, the quality of your leadership will be determined by the quality of the questions you ask. And two, if it all fails, get curious.
Yeah. Dang. Questions and curiosity. Let's go, Tim. So people are loving you, man. They're loving your energy, your wisdom. How can they stay connected with you, and what do we want them to do next?
So right now I'm really on a kick to build my Instagram base. I actually just promoted a next thing, but if you go at Tim Long Consulting, that's my Instagram handle. You'll be able to find me, follow me. I have a ton of memes. I also have stuff with my son and my drones and pictures that I take. So it's a conglomeration of everything I'm doing. And then if you want to go to my website, it's timlongconsulting.com. Real simple, real straightforward. Would love the extra, followers if you find that what I'm saying resonates with you.
Definitely. And definitely reach out to Tim because he's an amazing human being. If you have questions, if you want to, explore your own self-mastery, he's definitely one to stay connected with, to have lead you on that path, to collaborate with, whatever that case might be. Just make sure you connect with him because he's an awesome guy raising an amazing family and just doing big things for the world. So Tim, dude, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you being the father, being the creator, being the designer of your reality, and someone who captures those moments and reminds people what it means to be a human being, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me on board.
You're welcome, man. Have a great day, okay?
You too. Yeah.